All right, hi everybody. Back for another video class. Last time, I went over uh, some of the real basics of MLA format and how to set it up. Um, and I also assigned chapters 1 and 2, well, portions. I went ahead and on D2L, and in case some of you didn't see it, I had the specific pages on D2L, and I did have an email stating that in the electronic book, that someone couldn't find page numbers. So basically, when you have your ebook up on the screen, if you look you can just scroll, use your scroll wheel and go up and down from page to page. But down in the bottom left corner, there's a page counter, and it'll tell you what page that you're on. And there is a slight difference on the last page of the chapters between the ebook and the physical book. I personally don't really know why that is, but I made it very clear in the announcement on D2L which is which. So again, whatever version of the book you have, if it's an e-text or it's the physical book, I'll make sure that all the page numbers, that you know the exact page numbers that you're supposed to be reading. And thank you to the student for pointing that out. I personally wouldn't have noticed the difference. So make sure you get that done. The first chapter is basically just a little bit about reflecting on your own literacy, which is kind of a strange little section there, but it does have some good advice. And I talked a little bit in the last video about the rhetorical situation. The book explains it a little bit um, different than I do. For me, I try to keep things simple. I've always appreciated when someone can tell me how to do something in the most direct and simple way. And again, I'm making a clear distinction between easy and simple. They are two different things. Maybe I should say effective instead of simple. I don't know. But that's what I mean by simple. It's just straightforward, no, get rid of all the excess, all the unnecessary garbage, and just get straight to the matter at hand. So what I'm going to be talking about today is your first essay, and kind of I'm going to give you a bit of a guide, I should say. Rubric is the word that the school uses and that the English department uses, but I'm just going to give you kind of a guide on what I think is a very effective way to go about writing this first essay, which is, of course, going to be personal experience. And that's why I had you read the chapter "Remembering an Event," because that's basically what you're doing for this. Sorry, drinking my coffee. It's late for me. It's 9:30. I'm an old man, uh, but that's actually not late for me, guys. I'm kidding. But basically, you're just telling a story. So I'm gonna start off with basic structure. Uh, Certain parts of the essay that every essay should have. Um, and then I'm going to give you kind of some options as far as structuring goes. Now, most of us, when we tell a story, we start at the beginning and we go to the end. That's it, beginning, middle, end. That is the most basic structure for every story. But there are ways that you can kind of play with that you can be creative with that. Um, Now that sounds simple enough, right? Well, you start at the beginning, you tell the middle, fill in the details, and then you wrap it up. And again, that's simple, but it's not always easy. One of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, well, once you figure out what the story is, what you're going to be telling, um, and this is just a story about you. It has to be something that you've experienced. I don't want to see like some kind of crazy horror novel about you going into the nether realms and consorting with demons and stuff. I mean, that's all cool and all that, but this is a story that you've actually experienced. And I will give a little disclaimer here, and I'm partially joking because I've had this happen in the past. Not at GGC, but at another school I worked at. But you are telling a story about yourself, so you want to choose wisely on the story you tell. In other words, I would advise highly against writing your personal experience essay about an unsolved crime that's a serious crime that you have committed and you're confessing to it in this essay. I know that sounds like a joke, and I'm mostly joking, but it has happened in the past. And quite frankly, if you write your personal experience about some kind of unsolved horrific crime in Gwinnett County, I will be compelled to let authorities know that I think I might know who did it. So just be careful, choose the story you tell wisely. And also the story should have a point. There should be some kind of, it could be something as simple as, hey, what I learned from this was never to rely on friends for a ride home, because you ended up getting stranded somewhere for 17 hours straight because the person who was supposed to pick you up never showed up. That could be, it could be something as simple as that. Well, that taught me never to rely on that particular person again. That's a lesson learned. You live and you learn. But there just has to be a point to it. This experience of blah, 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 having my first child taught me how precious life is and how much I need to appreciate uh, every single day, or something like that. It can just be something that can be heartwarming. It can be, um, you can write about something that's tragic that's happened in your life, but I will, again, caveat, I will warn you, if the memory, the experience that you choose to write about is something that is very recent and it is very close, extremely close to your heart, and it causes just an overwhelming wave of emotions to even think about it, much less write about it, I would tread carefully. I probably wouldn't write about that, because overall, I grade the essays on their overall content. Um, it has to be, again, for this one, it has to be a complete story with a beginning, middle, and an end. There has to be sufficient details. Things have to be uh, sensory details. If you're describing something, food, how it tastes, how it smells, just all of that needs to be there. But if what happens, in my experience, and this is my 16th year teaching, in the past, I've had a lot of students who wrote about events in their lives that were extremely traumatic. And what happens, whether they realize, and I know that they don't even realize they're doing this. But when they're writing it, some of the events, the main event that they're writing about is so traumatic and so emotional that they just leave extremely important details out, and it turns into this very hard to comprehend essay that's, I know something bad happened, but I don't really know what happened because they're leaving so many details out. I've even had students in the past who will literally type some that's vitally important. I'll say, like, I don't want to use specifics, but I'll say about maybe a loved one passing away. And they'll start to write about it, and they'll have something in their introduction or in their one of the body paragraphs, and they'll be talking about something that needs actual specific details, and they will literally type, but I don't want to talk about it. And that makes me feel bad because when I grade it, if it's this really incomprehensible essay about this horrible thing that happened, but I don't really even know what it's about because so many details are left out and it's so glossed over, and it's repeatedly saying, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to. That if that's the main thesis, the main idea of your essay, you need to talk about it or choose a different topic. Because I feel really bad when someone writes about this major event in their life that was traumatic and hurts their heart so much that they can't even write effectively or clearly about it. The essay itself, I grade the essays. The essay itself is going to get a bad grade because it's a bad essay. Now it's about this horrible thing, and I have sympathy and I feel bad, but at the end of the day, it's a bad essay, so it will receive a bad grade. Um, and that makes me feel horrible. So that's probably for this personal experience essay. If it's something that it's going to be so hard for you to even talk about, much less write about, probably put that one on a shelf and save it for later. Um, I had a very traumatic event happen to me when I was younger. I lost my older brother through a random act of violence, and I tried to write about it the same year that it happened, and it was one of the worst things I've ever written. However, 8 or 9 years later, when I'd finally had time to really reflect on it, I turned it into a fictional story that actually does have a happy ending. It's fictional, but it's loosely based on what happened to my brother, and it was my first story that got a big published in a big journal. So I took that pain and that heart, but I let it sit for long enough that I could adequately deal with it, and I also had to fictionalize it and turn it into something completely different with different people, but similar events, if you know what I mean. So if this is going to be too traumatic for you, honestly, save yourself the unnecessary heartache and just write about something else. Um, However, I will say I've had students write about horrible things that happened and write extremely good essays. And that makes me feel good because I feel that that's almost like a catharsis for them where they kind of, the cliche, get it off their chest or whatever. But just be careful with the story you choose to tell. Make sure it's something that you can comfortably tell. And remember, you're sharing this with other people. So make sure you're comfortable with other people reading it. Okay, so that's my little disclaimer there. Um, but as far as what you choose to write about, I will only advise against things. I will never tell you that you cannot write about this. Okay, but I will, again, if it's some major crime you committed, I would heavily advise against that. And if it's unsolved crime or whatever, I would heavily advise against that. If it's something that's too close to your heart and you're not going to be able to adequately explain anything or give any details, just don't do it. Save it for something later. Put it on a shelf. Don't abandon it. Just, put it on a shelf and come back to it when you feel that you can actually get it out. Um, and that's what I would do in that case. So as far as the structure goes, again, in your introduction, you want to give some background to set the scene. You're setting the scene up. So an example I like to use is just a very generic example. And I use Halloween. Okay, let's say, and this is not the prompt, but let's say if I said, I want you guys to write about your favorite holiday and explain why it's your favorite holiday, or what's the best holiday, or something stupid like that. Well, that's not stupid, actually. You could write a pretty cool essay about that. But just something like that. That's not your assignment, but this is for example purposes. So I've already showed you how to set up the MLA, so I'm not going to do that just for time's sake. I'm not going to do that for this, what's right up here where I'm typing. I'm just going to go straight into it, to the examples. So once you do have your MLA all set up, oh, and by the way, I will have a printed out version, a worksheet thing that I made explaining how to set up MLA on your computer that basically gives step-by-step instructions in MLA format so you can see what it looks like. That basically goes over what I went over in the last video, the MLA video, but it's going to be a written out form so you can see it and just use that as a quick reference if you want to. I'll have that also up on D2L. by the time this video's up. So when we get to our intro, now of course I'll just hit the tab button once to kind of indent the line. And just for clarity's sake, I am going to go ahead and make my fonts correct. So I'm going to go to 12, and I am going to go to Times New Roman. And I am also going to double space. Okay. So we're going to start off a bit general. So if you think about kind of, you can think about the structure of your essay for these essays as kind of like an hourglass, or like the thing, you know, on the belly of a black widow. So your intro can start off, it's going to start off general, but it's going to get increasingly specific and work to a point. And that's going to be your thesis, because remember, your thesis is the main point of the essay. And then your body paragraphs are going to branch out again, where you're going to go from specific, that topic sentence, that's going to be the specific main idea of that paragraph, and you're going to expand it into the bigger picture with the specific examples and the support, all that stuff. So this is not going to be by any means, I'm making this up off the top of my head basically, so it's not going to be Shakespeare by any stretch, but it's also not going to be up to the length of what a normal essay you guys would be writing would be, because I'm just giving you examples. So if I started out with something like that should probably be billions, but I've already typed it. So I'm just whatever. So this is, you see how general that is? That's a general opening sentence for my essay. Now remember, this essay is going to be about my favorite holiday being Halloween. So I start off with every year something like this. Again, I'm just making this up, so it's ultra generic. Every year, millions of people around the country celebrate holidays of many kinds. And as I said, it should probably be billions, but whatever. So that lets the reader know right off the bat that this essay, this piece is better based on that opening sentence right there, very first sentence of the essay. What's this essay going to be about? It's going to be about holidays in some way. That's based on what I've written right there. That should let the reader know that this is going to have something to do with holidays or a holiday. Okay, so I could give some examples here. For instance, birthdays are celebrated every day. Now, birthdays are a holiday, you know, and I could just give some more examples, you know. And it could be anything you want, you know. In the Jewish community, Hanukkah is probably the biggest holiday of the year, and while others celebrate Christmas and blah blah blah, and you know, lovers celebrate Valentine's Day. So I'm just giving general background that this is going to be about holidays. So once I've done all of that, I'm going to get to my thesis statement. Okay, so I didn't put a period, but I'm going to stop there. So so I've given my little background. I've set up my this is holidays, and I've gone from just general, just celebrate holidays of many kinds. Then I'm getting more specific. For instance, birthdays are celebrated every day. And then I gave some even more specific, Hanukkah, Christmas, Valentine's Day, whatever. And now I'm saying these holidays all have their merits. In other words, they've all got their pluses and their minuses and whatever. However, now this is my thesis statement. However, Halloween is the best of all holidays. Now, if I put a period there, that indicates, and this is the very last sentence of my intro right here, y'all. So that tells the reader, this is my main idea. This is my thesis statement. Okay? Now, if I just stop right there, however, Halloween is the best of all holidays. Now remember, your thesis has to be arguable. A fact is not arguable. A fact is one of two things. It's either correct or incorrect. If it's incorrect, guess what? It's not a fact. So your thesis statement has to be an opinion. It has to be arguable. Okay, so is this a thesis statement? Halloween is the best of all holidays? Yes, it is, because that can be argued. Someone could say, no, it's not. Whatever's the best holiday. Groundhog Day is the best holiday, which is a great movie, so you could argue that, I guess. But that in itself is actually a thesis because it's arguable. Is it a good thesis? No. In fact, it's kind of a generic, pretty lame thesis. So what I would recommend you do, again, this is a recommendation. I'm not telling you you have to, but I'd highly recommend it. Since these essays are all going to be 3 to 5 pages, and that means 3 full pages minimum. That means I would just go right into the top of the 4th page or whatever. When it says 3 in your last name up in the top corner, no, that's not 3 pages. You have to write 3 full pages minimum, which is pretty short for a college essay. So what I would recommend if you're going to be using this 3 to 5 page format, I recommend you use the 5-paragraph essay. 5 paragraphs is a perfect length for 3 to 5 pages. If you're going to use the 5-paragraph, now I would, absolute bare minimum, and I'm talking bare minimum to where you're going to get a passing grade, not an A passing grade, is you need at least 3 full paragraphs, because you have to have an intro, you have to have a body, and you have to have a conclusion. You don't have all 3 of those components, you don't have an essay. So 3 is the absolute basement. I would recommend use the 5-paragraph format. Now you can use more than that, but I really wouldn't use less. So if I'm going to be using that 5-paragraph format, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what I call the 3-part thesis. Because what that does is, A, it's going to be specific. So when the reader gets done with my introduction, they're going to have a clear idea of what the rest of this essay should focus on. So that's the first benefit. B is that by using a 3-part thesis, I've basically written a 1-sentence outline of my essay. I've outlined it. So I don't need to use those little bubble, those little circle things where you've got junk shooting out all over the place and little boxes. Those, if they work for you, by all means. I used to hate when I had to do those things. Clusters, whatever, they do not work for me. But if you use this 3-part thesis, you've got your outline right there. Now that doesn't mean you can't use outlines, so you can go for it. When I write longer stuff, I write pretty detailed outlines. I don't do all the formal Roman numerals and all that junk, but I've got my own little thing that works for me. But the 3-part thesis is an outline. So I'm not going to stop there. My period's not going to, I'm going to get rid of that period. So I'm going to go a step further. Well, technically 3 steps further. However, Halloween is the best of all holidays because of the, yeah, in my real life, y'all, I'm a massive, massive horror movie fan. I have a, if you can see back behind me where I'm pointing with my thumb, that big, all those DVDs on that shelf back there, those are all horror movies, okay? So I'm a huge horror movie fan. Uh, so this is my thesis right here. However, Halloween is the best of all holidays because of the, I'm just gonna be nice, because of the scary movies. Now, that's my first reason, okay? So what's my next one? I'm too old for this now, but, well, I won't say trick-or-treating. I would say the costumes because, you know, even when I lived out in Vegas, I'd go down on the strip and dress up when I worked at UNLV. So and I was an adult, so that was fun. So because of the scary movies, the costumes, and now, you know, when the kids come by trick-or-treating, I love seeing them in their costumes and stuff. It's cool. My kids don't do it anymore. They're too old, but the scary movies, the costumes, and, okay, so I'm listing. So I've got my first two and then my final reason. And now here's, you see how I put that comma? Look right here, how I put that comma before the and? That's called the Oxford comma. Use it. I know a lot of you in high school are taught not to. Use it, okay? I'll not in this video, but probably in the next video, I will point out why the Oxford comma is important and why you need to put it there. So go ahead and put it there. The scary movies, the costumes, and I don't eat a lot of candy, but I'll just put it on there. And the candy. So I'm just being generic. All right, so that's my thesis statement, okay? These holidays all have their merits. However, Halloween is the best of all holidays because of the scary movies, the costumes, and the candy. Now, if I'm using the 5-paragraph format, I just did my outline. So when I get down here to my first body paragraph, remember, tab one time, indent. What's my first body paragraph going to be about? Scary movies. I've listed it right here. It's right here. There's my first body paragraph. Okay, so once I get there, now I need my topic sentence. Okay, so my topic sentence is going to be the thesis statement, if you will, the main idea. Remember, the thesis, this is the main idea of my whole essay right here, this thesis. My topic sentence, which will be the first sentence of the body paragraph, is going to be the main idea of that specific paragraph. So there's many ways that you can indicate this. You could say something like, the first reason I love Halloween. That's a transition. You see how I'm transitioning? The first reason why Halloween is the best. Now notice I'm saying this right here. Let me highlight this. Halloween is the best. I'm not using phrases like I think or in my opinion. Don't use those. You're making a claim here, and your claim, you want to be as persuasive as possible. If you say, well, in my opinion, Halloween is the best. We know it's your opinion, but don't tell us that. That weakens your stance. So when you get, now for this, it's not that important because this is just kind of goofy. But when you get into a real important argumentative essay, you do not want to use things like in my opinion and stuff because that weakens your stance. It makes you seem less authoritative, and you want to look like or sound like or read like you are the authority, not an authority, the authority. Okay, that's a major part of persuasion. So these all have their merits. However, Halloween is the best, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now that I'm in my first body paragraph, here's my topic sentence. It can be that simple. So now I'm just being more specific. I'm just using specific examples. And I don't even know if Netflix is capitalized like that. It has the capital F or not, I don't know. Anyway, I have it, I just don't ever pay attention to it. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Let's see if spell check can detect that, if they've actually gotten that good to where they don't even, where they're actually part of, there you go, they're part of spell check. Wow, go Netflix. The first reason Halloween is the best holiday is the movies that come on Netflix every year. So now I'm not just talking in general, I'm being even more specific. I'm talking about on Netflix. Although, if you guys want real horror movies on streaming services, Shudder. And that's with D's, not T's. Shudder with a T is the things outside your windows. Shudder with DDER is when you're scared. So the first reason Halloween is the best holiday is the movies that come on Netflix every year. That's my topic sentence. So now I'm going to be talking not only about scary movies, I'm going to be talking about specifically the scary movies that are on Netflix. For example, oops, that's what happens when you put your hand in the wrong place on the keyboard. For example, last year, It, referring to Netflix, because Netflix isn't a they, it's an it. For example, last year it had the entire Halloween original trilogy. And I'm talking about the first three, you know. So back the 1979, 1981, and 1983. So for example, last year it had the entire Halloween original trilogy. I'd never seen them. Only the remakes. Boo. Now that's how you build a body paragraph. I'm giving specific examples. Now I could go into more detail and say they also had this and this, that, and you say, this is, you know, there's nothing I like better than grabbing some popcorn and something to drink and sitting down in front of the TV and watching the Halloween movies or something like that. It gets me in the spirit or whatever. You're giving specific examples. Now you say, I'd never seen them, only the remakes. So now you're getting into all that. So those are where you give supporting details in your body paragraphs. And once I'm done with that, blah, 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 I finish that paragraph, I move to my next body paragraph. And then, remember, what's this one going to be? It's going to be about the costumes. So you can use something to transition. Something can be like, while scary movies are great, I also love the costumes. And you could say, you know, whatever, the costumes I see every Halloween. Or the costumes you wear, or the costumes you make, you know, think about it. I mean, that's big stuff now, right? I know some of you are probably bummed out about the Dragon Con and all that stuff, because that's basically, you know, I went to Dragon Con back when it first started, and it's different now. Now it's more, it was a long, long time ago, it was basically about comic books for the most part, and now it's basically more of a cosplay convention than anything. If you really think about it, that's why I would say at least 85–90% of the people go is to dress up and to see the people dressed up. And of course, it's all about Marvel and DC movies now. It's not, the comic books are like actual physical comic books. They're like in a galaxy far, far away at Dragon Con now. But the costumes, you know, while scary movies are great, I also love the costumes I see every Halloween. That's my transition. You see how I let you know what I was just talking about, and this lets you know, hey, I'm moving on. Next topic. And then I will give details. Last year I went as so-and-so, you know, whatever. I went as Freddy Krueger, and the makeup took me 3 hours to put on, and it was awesome, and I won a competition or whatever. Anything, whatever you want to do. You just give the specifics. So this is how you're going to be structuring it. When I'm done with this one, I move to my next one. And that would be, I guess even though it's not, this isn't really my thing, but the candy, you know? And then finally, what would, whoa, I hit caps lock. Halloween be without candy? Now you want to be real careful with questions, but this is more of a rhetorical question, and since it's my topic sentence, I can get away with it. You never ever want to end your essay in this class, at least. I'm not saying it's never appropriate, but you do not want to end your essay with a question mark. Not for this class, and not for college writing in general. Stay away from that. This is more kind of like a rhetorical question, which is dangerous in itself because you're expecting everybody else to have the same answer that you do. But what would Halloween be without the candy? Or one of the things I miss most from when I was a kid was getting home with my pillowcase full of candy after a night of trick-or-treating. I remember getting, one year I got 16 Snickers bars, which are my favorite candy bars. You give specific examples and you go through all that. So that's my third one. I'm done with that. I've given my topic sentence, I've given my examples. Now when I get to my conclusion, here I'm going to wrap up and kind of give a summary of what I've just said, and I'll go back, kind of just give a wrap up of all the, basically, I don't want to repeat my introduction. That's a mistake. You don't want to just go back and copy paste your introduction or your thesis. You want to restate your thesis as the very last thing in your conclusion, but you want to word it differently in a concluding manner. So, for instance, I could say something like, holidays of all sorts are celebrated throughout the year in almost every community, something like that. This lets you know that I'm kind of summarizing what I just talked about. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of holidays to choose from. They all have something good about them or something like that, but because of the movies, costumes, gotta use that Oxford comma, and candy, Halloween will always be the best holiday there is. So see, that's me restating my thesis at the end, but I'm saying pretty much the same thing I said up here. It's just here I'm making more of a proposition that I'm going to have to prove. If you look at the difference, Halloween is the best of all holidays because of the scary movies, the costumes, and the candy. I just made a claim. That's like if you're thinking like in a trial, that's the opening statement. I've just made that claim. Now I have to prove it. So in my body paragraphs, the first reason is the best is because of the movies, Netflix, and blah blah blah. So I've gone through and I've proven my case. I'm using that, in quotes, because at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. But I've gone through and given all my specific examples and details, and then here I'm stating it in a concluding manner. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of holidays to choose from. They all have good things. But because of the movies, costumes, and candy that I just talked about, Halloween will always be the best holiday there is. Done. Case closed. I'm over. That's it. You're done. So that's how you structure a basic 5-paragraph essay. And if you give enough details and enough supporting evidence, you will have your 3 to 5 pages, no problem. And you've got your if you do your thesis like this, you've got your outline right there. So that is how I would go about doing these essays. Now, I am going to go ahead and assign the first draft of your personal experience essay. Now remember, notice what I'm doing here. I, my favorite, me, mine. I'm telling a story, which is what you guys are going to be doing. So when I'm telling a story, I'm going to be telling it in first person. First person is I, me, my, mine, ours, all that. So many of you were probably told in high school at some point not to use first person. Well, it depends on the purpose. It depends on what type of essay you're writing. You're telling a story, okay? You're telling a story about you, so you're going to use first person. Think about how ridiculous this would be. Let's say if I'm writing this, if I wrote this essay in third person, think about how ridiculous that would be. The first reason Halloween is the best holiday is the movies that come on Netflix every year. For example, last year it had the entire Halloween original trilogy. Jeremy had never seen them. Do you see how weird that sounds? While scary movies are great, Jeremy also loves the costumes he sees every Halloween. I'm talking about myself. I'm going to say I also love the costumes I see every year, not Jeremy loves the costumes he sees every year. That's goofy. Um, Although, a lot of, especially like, athletes and stuff tend to like talking about themselves in the third person, but it's just goofy. So for this one, first person is not suggested, just do it. I mean, write it in the first person. You're telling a story. Tell it from your perspective, which is first person. You're the narrator. So I am going to officially assign this during the next class period. But the first draft is a rough draft. I want to explain this very clearly. When you turn a rough draft into me, I'm going to give you, and we'll do it the same way we did this first diagnostic essay, which you guys are not getting back, by the way. Those are for me. Those are my gauge on what we need to focus on. So you will not be getting those back from me. You got a credit for turning them in. And I think pretty much everybody did turn one in. I think there might be 2 or 3 people from all the classes that didn't. But almost all of you did. So you get full credit for those if you turned them in. You'll be turning in the drafts the same way, either emailing them directly to me or putting them in the Dropbox on D2O. You will get feedback as well as a grade on the first draft. If you do not like that grade, you can revise it and give it to me the following week after I return them. So you have 1 week to do revisions, 1 full week. If I give it back to you on a Tuesday, then you have until the following Tuesday to send me the revision. Okay? Now the way I grade revisions is different than the way a lot of people do. If you get a D on your, well, I'll say a C because I don't want to have to do math. If you get a C on your first draft and you turn in the revision after you get that back, and the revision is an A, I don't average the two. I know some people do. I don't do that. That's foolish. But so let's say if you got a C on the first one and then on the first draft and then the revision was an A, I change it to an A. You turned a C into an A, in my book, that's an A. Averaging it to a B does not make any sense to me. You turned a average, well, an average essay into a really good essay. It became a really good essay. You know, I always use the analogy of like of a athlete. Um, what if my rookie season, if I'm a baseball player, what if my rookie season I bat 196? Which is not a good batting average. Anybody who plays baseball, that's really, if I'm a pitcher, it's good, but but if I'm a third baseman, a 196 average is not good. I'm probably not going to be starting if I'm even on the roster. But let's say in my first season I bat a 196, and then I come out in my next season and I bat 290. That's a good average. My manager and owner of that team are not going to be going, well, you only batted this last year, but now you're hitting 290, so we're just going to make your average split between the two. No, I went from a pretty bad hitter to a pretty great hitter. I'm a great hitter. I'm no longer that poor hitter. So if you get a C and it becomes an A, it's an A. I don't average the two. So you will get a chance to do that revision if you want. Now, if you're on your first draft, you get an A, you don't have to do a revision. You can't get anything higher. Now, I still want you to go through and look at all my comments and all my critiques, because just because you get an A doesn't mean it's a perfect essay. Nobody's ever written a perfect essay. No one. So at least look at the comments. But if you do get it, and if you're happy, if you get a C and you're happy, I'm happy for you. Keep the C. So that's it. That's how this is going to work. And I will have all the specifics and assignment sheet and everything up on D2L. So that'll all be there. But this will be the last video for the week. So I won't have any new videos up until next week. But I will be during class time. I will be on D2L and I will be live. If you have questions or concerns or anything, email me, call me, whatever, text me. I'll be here. So just start thinking about the story you want to tell and how you want to tell it. And that's it.